Hey guys, Tyler Ansman here with Tyler Ansman Performance. So we're going to continue our pitching development thoughts. In this part, what we're going to discuss is recovery, all right? So we've done longer videos on this topic, but I'm going to kind of give a brief overview of a bunch of different pieces to recovery. I think one of the things that's often misunderstood, and it comes from a good place, is that guys want to be able to do more when we're talking about recovery. And recovery doesn't necessarily mean doing more, right? Think about a little bit how difficult it would be that by doing more, we're not adding more fatigue and we're actually driving a meaningful benefit in some way. And so this is kind of the misconception of this. It's like, well, can I go do like some light cardio and some whatever else? And it's like, well, the aerobic development side, if it's truly light enough, can help speed some of these markers. I think where the problem comes into play is around timing, volume, and intensity of all of these different variables, right? So when we're talking about, like, let's say post-throwing recovery is kind of like a really popular topic at this point. What does that look like? What should that look like? Again, longer form video on this that we've done before that goes more into the specifics, but in general, rather than just immediately kind of hopping off the mound, whether it's a training session or in a game or whatever, and then just doing a bunch of these kind of rotator cuff, forearm, whether it's elbow or shoulder based kind of exercises and movements and all of these things to like drive blood flow and improve recovery, at that point, what we want to do is just chill, right? Because if we're talking about trying to improve these aspects of health and strength and all of these things, what's happening is that stuff is already really fatigued after throwing. Anything that you're going to do, especially generally the low-level activities that are done, really isn't helping in a meaningful way. And if we look at research into connective tissue done by Dr. Keith Barr, what we've kind of seen is that collagen synthesis, so collagen is primarily what connective tissue is made up of. Collagen synthesis is maximized about every 6 hours. So if at the end of a training session or the end of a throwing session, we're going to go try to do something that's meant to kind of help the connective tissue health, not it, right? Either if it's a night game or a night training session, just wait till the next day. Do it then. You want to do it first thing. Probably want to supplement some collagen and vitamin C with that, and then take care of that. But the same thing kind of extends to this aerobic-based activity, right? So a lot of well-intentioned players, coaches, all these guys are having their guys like run a ton of distance. And it's not necessarily problematic from a physiology standpoint if it's truly kept low enough. But at some point, that volume is going to creep into this kind of chronic fatigue piece. And so there's a time and a place for aerobic development, absolutely. But we want to keep that volume under control, right? It's that kind of that Charlie Francis principle. We want to keep our low days low and our high days high. If we start creeping into this middle ground, we're going to be affecting our high days in a negative way with stuff that really isn't driving a meaningful adaptation in terms of its intensity, all right? So what can we actually do to help with recovery? Well, it's not going to be an answer that anyone really likes that much because a lot of it's passive and not necessarily easy to do in terms of how you make time for it. So the biggest one is sleep, right? If you're a high school, college, or professional athlete and you're not getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 or 9 hours of sleep, like you're probably missing the boat on that, and there's a lot to be gained by changing that part of your life, right? We could see this in the Stanford research with their basketball players, how these, some of the best basketball players on the planet immediately improved their free throw percentage and their sprint times just by being in bed longer, right? They didn't even necessarily have to sleep for a given amount of time, but they had to be in bed for, I believe it was 10 hours, and all of these markers improved, right? And these guys were already at the elite level. Think about what that means for guys who are not, right? The other aspect is nutrition, right? Are you eating enough? If you're in a caloric deficit, right, we're probably not recovering the best that we can. Right? And so there's some times of year where you may need to drop some body fat or body weight or all these things, and that's fine, but understand what that looks like for recovery, and that probably isn't in season. All right, the other piece is hydration, right? Are you drinking enough water? Are you getting enough electrolytes? All of those things can be helpful if you're not kind of hitting those. And then on the passive side, again, with like a little bit more specifically towards throwing, compression can be a really helpful thing, right? There's a lot of research about compression garments. We have a full article on that topic, but just wearing that around post-throwing can immediately be helpful. But again, there isn't going to be a lot of activity you can do to kind of make yourself feel better, like, hey, I'm getting better at doing this. Kind of just have to be patient. And then when you come in to train again, make that the best training session you can. You don't just always need to be filling your days with activity. Take a little bit of time to chill, relax, and actually recover. Thanks for watching.